Hello, hello, hello. It's your girl Kathleen, aka Casorine, aka Sorin, and welcome to Sorin's Soapbox. Yes. Here on Sorin's Soapbox is where we rant about love, life, and the pursuit of music. Get into it. All right, so we are now at episode 4. We are just rolling right into the episodes. So, the previous episode, we kind of talked about dating apps and how that experience has been for me. So, I think today's episode is a little bit apropos, but we're gonna go a little bit on a different route with this. I'm not gonna lie, we're gonna actually get a little personal. I mean, most of the episodes, if I'm honest, have been pretty personal about my life, but this one's gonna take a different route when it comes to me being, if I'm honest, vulnerable and telling a story about myself. This is actually a story I never thought I'd tell publicly, but here we are, and I'll get into the details about the story, but it has to do with dating apps. And ironically, after watching the movie, I guess, documentary called The Tinder Swindler, I know I'm a little late to the game, but I recently just watched it, actually earlier today, and funny enough, I was pretty triggered by it. I was really triggered by the documentary that I needed to get on my soapbox about it and really talk about it, because I've had a similar experience, not in the confines of dating, but dealing with a family member. So I kind of want to talk about it and basically get into my experience with myself being bamboozled, swindled, led astray, hoodwinked, if you will. So today's episode is going to be my swindling experience. So we're going to get into that in today's episode. I'm not going to lie, today's episode is going to be very transparent, very vulnerable. I don't know if I'll get emotional on this story, but if I'm being honest, I feel like telling this story is necessary. I don't know, I just feel like there's a need for me to tell this story, so I'm gonna go ahead and do so. I don't know, maybe my story will get weaponized against me, maybe it'll get used against me, but whatever. You can't shame me for my truth. It's basically how I see it. But before we jump into today's episode, you guys know what to do. If you haven't already, please follow me on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, and IG. My handle is Shameless Listo on all platforms. That's ShamelessLissZto. Again, I am Shameless Listo on all social media platforms. Make sure you hit me up and follow me on all platforms. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode, because like I said, this episode is going to be a little bit personal, so I'd love to kind of connect with you and hear your thoughts. So let's get into the episode. So, as I said, I know I'm late, but I recently watched The Tinder Swindler. And if you're not familiar with what that is, it's a documentary, I presume. It was like a movie documentary series. And it basically talked about this man named Simon who said he was the heir to a diamond business. And he was on Tinder basically looking for dates. And he would meet these women and show them this fabulous lifestyle, how he had money, he wore designer clothes, he stayed at these fancy hotels. He would basically wine and dine them and show them this luxury lifestyle. And as he's basically stringing these women along, they would essentially fall for him. And then somewhere along the line, he would basically reveal to them that because he's in the diamond industry, that it's a dangerous business, and he had enemies that were after him, and he had security threats. And therefore, it meant that there was danger for the women he was in a relationship with. And at some point along the relationship, he would say that because of the security threats and his enemies, they could find him through his credit cards and he could no longer use his credit cards. And he would ask these women to get credit cards in their names, and he would constantly max out the limit and have them call the credit card companies to increase the limit. He was having these women take out quick cash loans, and basically the whole Ponzi scheme was he would have one woman basically get a quick cash loan to give him and it would be like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in cash, give it to him, and then he'd turn around and use that same money to splurge on another woman. And it was like a continuous cycle. And he would constantly tell these women oh, I'll pay you back, I'll pay you back, I'll pay you back. And of course, these women were piling up debt, piling up debt, piling up debt. He would tell these women that, oh, we're going to get married, we're going to have a family together, let's move in together. Have these women look for these luxury apartments, so that they could move in together. But again, it was all just part of this scheme. So I'm watching the documentary, and initially, and unfortunately it's part of the patriarchal society, you look into it and you want to blame the women because they look him up on Google and they see he's a billionaire son, and they kind of get caught up in the glitz and the glamour, and they're like, oh my God, he's a billionaire son, who doesn't want to be with a billionaire son? And even the first girl, I believe her name was Cecilia or Cecily, I'm not sure her name, but he meets her for coffee, and from the immediate conversation, he tells her he's the heir of a diamond business. And to me, that was already a red flag. Somebody who is royalty or in some type of business like that, in my experience at least, they don't normally tell you that from jump, because they are trying to avoid gold diggers in the first place. So I mean, obviously, if you're famous, but you're usually a little bit more pretentious in revealing that type of information because you kind of want to vet out the women or men who are into you for you and not for what you have. So that was that. And then after their little coffee date, he's like, oh, well, I'm only here for a few hours. I have to go to Bulgaria for business. And he was like, oh, do you want to come? And I'm like, wait, what? You literally just met him for that day, and you've only been talking to him for a few hours, and already he's asking you to get on a flight to Bulgaria. And as I mentioned in the last episode, I'm a true crime aficionado. I watch Bailey Sarian like an addict. Make good choices, like she says. And for me, that just seemed real off. I've watched too many Taken, Born Identity, those type of movies. And somebody asking you to get on a flight to Bulgaria after you've only met them for 5 minutes just doesn't sit right with me. And even she texted her friends saying oh, I'm going to Bulgaria, and they were like, wait, what? What if he kidnaps you? And she texts YOLO to her friends. And I'm like, nah, that's not how you do YOLO. That's not how this works. So again, watching this, you don't want to judge the women and you don't want to side-eye them. But again, for me, coming from the outside looking in, there are a lot of what appears to be red flags in the situation. He just seems to be flashing his money, this, that, and the third. And then when he starts to introduce to them that he's being chased after by these enemies, at one point the girl said she was sleeping and he just texts her a picture of his bodyguard getting shot with blood all over him and this, that, and the third. And I was like, why would you send that to somebody? It's one thing if you just text him and said, oh my God, hey, there was a terrible accident. My bodyguard and I, we almost got hurt. We're on our way to the hospital. But to send somebody an actual picture and a video of somebody with blood on the side of their head as if they got stabbed, them in the ambulance in a hospital, a selfie, I got questions. I got real questions and real concerns. But again, neither here nor there. It was just a lot of weird situations that just would have made me feel something's not right. So all in all, I just hated in watching the series that, for one, I hated that Netflix brought these women on and they still had debt. They still have debt from what I know to this day. And Simon is out free because they couldn't really pin anything on him, because all the credit card, all the debts, all of that was in the women's name, because his name wasn't really pinned on any of it. The only thing they put him in jail for was like, I think he had some stolen checks from when he was like a teenager and a stolen identity. But other than that, he only spent 5 months in jail. Now he's out and he's got a website for like to give free advice. And he has a whole Instagram and he's flexing and flashing all this money. So he's right back to basically doing what he used to do. And these women are still picking up the pieces of their lives. And that's a whole issue in and of itself, that this man basically got off scotch-free and is living his best life. Meanwhile, the women are still having to pick up the pieces of their life, still having to pay off these debts. And I'm hoping, like, with all of the publicity they're getting, that there's some sort of monetary, benefits to it. But the fact that they still have the debts, like literally the end of the Netflix series, documentary, said that they still had the debt. And there was only one girl who made out like a bandit, and that's because she decided to swindle the swindler by taking all of his designer clothes and selling them on eBay. And she at least made some of her money back. She's the only one I was like, okay, kudos. She decided to at least get some of it back. But I felt really bad for the girls that they're still stuck in debt because of this man and having to put the pieces of their life together. So yeah, that's basically the gist of what the Tinder Swindler is. It's just a man who basically created a whole Ponzi scheme of swindling these women out of their money and promising them this whole luxurious lifestyle and making them feel like they were on top of the world. And the whole time these women thought that they were in some Disney movie. And I blame Disney really for making us believe that love is this, happy-go-lucky, that there's no ups and downs and things like that. But I have my own rant about Disney and the unrealistic love story that it creates in our minds, especially girls. But that's another rant for another day. But anyways, I bring up the Tinder Swindler story because for me, watching these girls was very traumatizing and very triggering for me, because it reminded me of my own personal story where I dealt with someone who was very much the same in swindling me out of my own money the same way. Now, it wasn't, an intimate relationship. It was a family member. And so I'm seeing people, blaming them like, oh, how could y'all be stupid? Y'all were greedy. Y'all were this. And I empathize with them, because this was a man that, for one girl, he was their friend. For the other girl, this was like the man she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. And I resonated with the friend because I was in her shoes. I was in her shoes where you're just wanting to be someone's support system. And it isn't until hindsight 2020 you realize that that person is taking complete advantage of you, because they realize that you have a kind heart and you're a good person, and they take your kindness for weakness. And that's what I saw in watching this. I saw myself in watching the series, and it was very painful to watch. So I'm going to actually tell my story about how I myself was swindled. And again, this is a very personal story. This is a very vulnerable moment for me, but I feel like it's very necessary that I tell my story. But before I do, we're going to have a little church announcement. That's what I'll call my little commercials, is here are your church announcements. So again, if you haven't, please make sure you're following me on all social media platforms as Shameless Listo. But also, outside of having this podcast, I do have a blog website. Listo is actually short for Listomaniac, because your girl listens to music all the time. That's actually the definition of a listomaniac, is someone who obsessively listens to music. Like, I listen to music to go to sleep. I listen to music as I work out. I listen to music as I clean. I listen to music as I'm walking. Like, silence, we don't know her. So hence the name Shameless Listomaniac. Listo for short. But I do have a blog site where I do album reviews, so make sure you check it out. My website is shamelesslisto.wixsite.com/shameless. Again, that's shamelesslisto.wixsite, wixsite.com/shameless. So make sure you check out my website and check out my blogs. I've done blogs on Summer Walker's recent album, Adele's recent album, as well as I do K-pop. So CL's last album, Alpha, I did an album review on that. So make sure you check out my website as well if you get the chance, okay? So those are your church announcements. Now back to the story. Okay, so this actually takes place on June 11th, 2012. And the reason why I remember that date is because that's the day that my grandmother passed away. And that's a date I'll never forget because she was very important to me. And I'll never forget that date. So my grandmother passed away. And so my family and I had to go to Haiti to basically arrange the funeral. And we were there for 2 weeks. And in my family, it's pretty common, and I think for pretty much all diasporas, it's pretty common that you take care of your family back home, like in your home country. So for example, like if you're African and you live in the States, it's pretty common to, like if you're working, to send some money home to your family back home, like no matter who's living there. It's kind of like a common cultural norm that you're working here, you send some money back, no matter how much it is, whether it's $20, $30, whatever, to help feed your family, this, that, and the third. So we spent 2 weeks in Haiti arranging for my grandmother's funeral. And there I met a particular family member, and we basically hit it off really, really well. And it was actually quite nice because I was still pretty much broken and in shambles off of the death of my grandmother. So it was nice to kind of have someone that I could lean on essentially during that time. It wasn't until later that I realized they kind of took advantage of the fact that I was in my low point. But yeah, at the time I realized I felt like I had someone I could turn to when I was really feeling broken and I really lost the backbone to my life. She was like the main grandparent that I grew up with. So losing her really like shook my core. So it was nice to kind of have somebody that was able to kind of help me deal with the process. So after a little 2 weeks in Haiti, we managed to keep in touch when I got back to the States. And the crazy thing with the Tinder Swindler is like they all talked about how the money demand didn't start off huge. Well, maybe in one situation it did, but like the money demand didn't start off huge in my situation. In my situation, it started off small, where the family member initially had a job in Haiti, but with the Haiti situation in general, finding work is very difficult, especially now with like the political turmoil and protesting and everything. Like finding work in Haiti is rough. And so it's not uncommon for family members to call you in the States and ask for money. And unfortunately, people in Haiti sometimes, they think like literally money grows on trees. So they think like, oh, you're in America, you're rich, you got money, so it's just laying around. So for me, this particular family member told me that the job that they had was a contract only and it was ending. But at the time, they didn't really ask me for a lot of money. They just asked me to put like money on their phone to give them minutes, essentially. So that's how it basically started. It started with me just, I think either once a month or every 2 weeks, I would put money on their phone just to make sure they had minutes so that like we could still talk and they could handle like work and stuff like that. So literally, I think it would cost me like $5-10 to do that. And for me, I was just like, oh yeah, sure. It's not a big deal. Like $5-10, that's nothing. And then it got to a point where the contract that they had ended. So then it went from putting money on their minutes to, oh, I need, I don't have food to eat. Can I have money for food? And it went from asking for money for food to, I need money for my family. And like, again, it started off really small. It started off really innocent. And it was kind of one of those things like, oh, this is somebody like I really care about. This is essentially like more than just my family member. This is my friend. And I'm doing a favor for my friend. So I saw it as nothing to help them out. Because in my mind, I was like, I would want the same thing to be done for me. Like if the roles were reversed, I would want someone to help me in the same way. So it just became that kind of consistent thing where I would, they would say, oh, I don't have food to eat. Because again, my mind is like Haiti. I've seen Haiti for my own eyes. I know how difficult it is to live in Haiti, how harsh it is to grow and do things in Haiti. So that was kind of like the mentality that I had. And so when they were like, oh, I can't go to the grocery store. I don't have any money to go to the grocery stores. Can I get some money? And it went from that to now the demands are becoming more and more and more. And essentially I'm being guilt tripped into giving the money. And even then, like, I say I'm being guilt tripped, but even then I'm still like, oh, I'm giving from the kindness of my heart. Like, and I'm not expecting any of it back. I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm just helping you out. I'm doing like my due diligence essentially. Cause again, this is what I grew up. I've seen my mom helping my family members out. I've seen this as a cultural norm. So I'm helping them out. I'm giving them money. But then like the demands just get ridiculous. Like, in the sense where, they're not looking for work because they're telling me like, oh, it's really hard to find a job out there. And it's not necessarily that I felt like they were lying. I legitimately believe like, okay, Haiti is in a bad place. And so it is hard to find jobs and find resources and do things like that. So it just became a constant request for money. And without a doubt, I gave and I gave and I gave and I gave. But then I remember there were like little things that, like you have a minor check in the back of your head, like, girl, get out. Like, stop doing this. Stop doing this. And it like was like little things. Like I remember there was like, this particular family member was like a big sneakerhead. They were really into Jordans. And there was like a pair of Jordans that they really wanted bad. And again, I'm the type of person, if you're really close to me, like you're in my inner circle, I will do anything for you. Like I will give you the shirt off my back. And I'm the type of person, like if I know like you like particular things, I'll like save my money over the course of a couple weeks or months or whatever to like get you something for like your birthday or for Christmas, especially if I know it's something that you've been dying or really wanted for a long time. I'll like, because my love language is acts of service, I'll be that type of person like, oh, I know that they really wanted this, this art set, for example. I'll put my money to the side and I'll secretly get it for you without me saying anything. Or, if you really wanted to go to this spa for a relaxation, I'll, okay, for example, I have a friend right now. She wants to go to nursing school. She showed us a picture of a stethoscope that she really wanted really bad. She was talking to us about it. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Didn't say anything to her. And then her birthday recently came. I went and got her the stethoscope. Why? Because she's my friend. I care about her. I really want her to pursue her nursing career. So I didn't say anything to her. I just tucked it away. And then when it came time, I went and got it for her. Because that's just the type of person I am. That's the type of person I am. So going backwards, he's talking about this particular Jordan that's coming out. He's wanted it since he was a kid. But the problem is when it comes to these Jordans, Jordans aren't cheap to begin with, especially when they're not general releases, which basically means they're the ones that you don't see in the store everywhere. They're the ones that only come for a certain season, and then you don't see them till 2-3 years later, 4 or 5 years later. So these particular Jordans, I believe they only come out every 10 years. I want to say they're the flu games. So these are like exclusives, and they run $400, $500. They're not cheap. And I'm being honest with myself. The reality of me trying to buy $400, $500 sneakers when I myself don't even own $400, $500 sneakers. Like, don't get me wrong. If I got it, I'm more happy to spend it on somebody else than spend it on myself. But the reality is, your girl ain't got it. And I remember he had like made the request, like, oh, like I really want them. And I think I said haphazardly, like, oh, I would love to get them for like Christmas or for your birthday. And I think he banked on me getting it. So when it was either Christmas or his birthday came around and I didn't get them, his whole attitude changed. The whole personality changed. And I'm like, wait a minute, like what's going on? Like, and it just became like, oh, you said that you were gonna get me these sneakers and now you're backing out of it. I can't believe you. I thought, like, had a whole temper tantrum. And I'm like, bruh, are you serious? I've helped you put money on your, like, give you minutes. I've made sure you have food to eat, clothes on your back, this, that, and the third. And yet you're crying to me about some daggone sneakers? Like, what's going on? And sadly enough, I wish I could say that was my exit strategy. That was like the point where I was like, let me get the heck up out of Dodge. But it wasn't. This continued on for a very long time. A very long time. And the financial demands that were placed on me became bigger and bigger and bigger. Because again, for me, I just wanted to help somebody that I considered a friend, somebody that I cared about, a family member. But the problem was that this person cared more about their wants and needs than my own. There were so many times where I'm working, busting my tail, and I barely made rent because this person is telling me like, oh, I need money to feed my kid and I need money for this, that, and the third. And I'm like, okay, but I gotta pay my rent and I gotta do this, that, and the third. And they're like, okay, well, can you just, like literally trying to negotiate my own paycheck with me. And I'm literally dumb enough to, and I'm saying I'm dumb enough, but I have grace for myself because I recognize that I didn't know my worth and I didn't know my identity and I didn't have the strength to see what was happening to me, to see that I was dealing with somebody who was narcissistic, who was manipulative, who would gaslight me and make me feel like crap when I would say no, because I would be like, no, I can't. Like, I gotta pay my rent. I gotta pay my gas bill. I gotta pay my electric bill. And the way this person would make me feel like, for lack of better words, a shitty person because I couldn't help them, that would make me feel so low. And I apologize. I'm gonna get emotional on this because this is a very, like I said, this is a different kind of episode. This is very personal. This is very real. This is very raw. But I feel compelled to share this. But they used to make me feel so low that, I would essentially give in because I didn't feel like arguing. I didn't feel like being combative. And not only that, like, it wasn't just that this person, would take money from me, but like a lot of the correlations between the Tinder Swindler was like, this guy would talk about like, oh, I'm so grateful to you, I'm so thankful for you, because if it wasn't for you, like, there's no way I'd be able to do this without you. Like, he would basically be like, oh, you're my best friend, I don't have anybody else that I could turn to, thank you so much. Like, those were literally the same phrases this man would say line for line, that I was his best friend and that he had nobody else that he could turn to. There was no way he could get to where he was if it wasn't for me. And I ate it up. I ate it up. I ate every bit of it up because I believed it. I believed that, I was the lifeline. And I think a part of me just wanted to be needed. Like, I think a part of me just felt good to be needed by somebody. And he saw that, he could smell it on me and he took advantage of it. It was like blood to a shark. Like, that's the best analogy I could give, is that it was like blood to a shark, and he just devoured me because he's like, oh, she's willing to give it. Because that's the thing about somebody who's a taker. They're going to take as much as the giver is willing to give, Because if a giver has no boundaries, baby, that is the best table for a taker to be at. Oh, you ain't got no boundaries. You ain't got no limitations. You never gonna tell me no. You ain't never gonna tell me to stop. Oh, I love it here. This is an all-you-can-eat buffet. Bet I'm living my best life, and that's what it was for him. That's what it was. And the whole time, like, I'm asking him if he's trying to get a job. I'm asking him, like, what he's trying to do with his life, if he's trying to go into school. And he's giving me, like, the little breadcrumbs, like, yeah, I'm trying to find a job. Yeah, I'm trying to go back to school. And even if he did try to get a job, he never stayed at the job because in his mind he was like, oh, I don't like working up under somebody. I hate authority. Well, you gonna have to figure it out, because if you don't like authority, you better figure out a way to work for yourself and be an entrepreneur and make that money, because this isn't working. And it just went on for so long that in reality, the amount of debt that I quote unquote have is probably very close to these women. Because the one girl said, like, oh, she probably put into this man $250,000, $350,000. Honestly, I've never counted, and I have receipts, because like I've talked about in the dating app episode, I'm somebody that keeps receipts. I keep receipts. I have kept every receipt financially that I've put into this person, and I wouldn't be surprised if I was close to, honestly, I don't even want to say. I really don't even want to say, because I'm really low key embarrassed. But I know it's high. Like, I'm gonna just say it's probably a 6-figure number, if I'm being honest. I'm gonna say it's a 6-figure, like a 6-digit number. I know for sure. I'm gonna just say it's high enough that I could have bought myself a car. It's high enough I could have bought myself a car. Now, I'll leave it to your imagination, whether it's a low-end car or a high-end car, but I put enough into that person that I could have bought myself a car, because the demands just constantly kept coming in, and like, he was clocking my paychecks, like, regularly clocking my paychecks. And again, part of that was on me, but part of that was just like this control and this manipulation and this, constantly me being up under his thumb. And it was like, oh, I need this, I need to do this, and I need to do that. And it was literally like, obviously the equivalent of working for a pimp, because it was me that was working, but then I had to present my money to him, and he's like, okay, I need this off the top, and then you could do whatever you want with the rest of it. And literally the rest of the money that I had was barely enough money for me to eat or do anything enjoyable. And it would be so embarrassing when my friends and everybody knew I worked, and they'd be like, oh, Kat, like, let's go do this, let's go do that. And I'd be like, oh, I don't have the money to do that. And I know they're looking at me like, girl, don't you work? Don't you got a good paying job? And it's like, yes, I have a good paying job. But I literally put all that money into this person because in my mind, literally, and again, we're going to put this from a biblical perspective, I felt like I was sowing seeds. In my mind, I felt like I'm sowing seeds and I'm going to reap a harvest. You know what? Like, okay, I'm just sowing this seed. It's going to come back to me. And I thought that for a long time. I thought that even with this person that they would have saw, like the Tinder Swindler, okay, she's been there for me. She's been doing all this for me. She's been helping me out. I'm going to return the favor. I'm going to help her out. I'm going to slide some money her way. I'm going to slide a stack her way. I'm going to slide a 20 her way, a something her way. And that was never the case. That was never the situation. Ever. And when I would bring it up, like, like, oh, I need this, I need that. Do you have any money to send my way? They'll be like, oh, I thought you said that you weren't doing this for any return. And it's just like, if we're both mutually friends, if you care about me the same way that I care about you, wouldn't you not also want to make sure that I'm eating, that I have a place to stay, that I have a roof over my head, that I'm not sleeping in my car, that there was a lot of bad things that happened to me because of this person. I lost a lot of things. if I'm being so bold and being so transparent, like, I got evicted from my apartment because I couldn't keep up the rent because of this person. So many things I was swindled out of because of the fact that I just felt like I was doing something for a greater good, for a greater purpose. And again, there may be people who listen to this and be like, girl, you stupid, girl, you dumb, like, you should have known better, this, that, and the third. And you're absolutely right. That, you're absolutely right to be like, oh, I should have known better, I could have done better. But at the time, like I said, I was in a vulnerable place. I was in a vulnerable state of mind. And somebody came in and took advantage of me. They took advantage of a girl who was insecure about herself, about just life in general. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know my worth. I didn't know my purpose. And somebody came in and saw somebody who was broken and decided to take advantage of them. So yes, you could say I was stupid. Yes, you could say I was dumb. But to put complete blame on me when you have somebody who's a complete narcissist, a manipulator, a gaslighter, and decides that instead of being a hardworking person in society, you leech off of those around you, who's really the bad person in this story? And I'm not necessarily putting any blame on them, because honestly, I forgive them. Because I don't think I would be the person I am today if it wasn't for them. So I actually thank them. I thank them, because this went on for 10 years. Like, I'm talking about this. This wasn't no short stint. This went on for 10 years. 10 years of me dealing with this. It wasn't until I got to Korea that I finally found the courage to cut this off. And funny enough, it was because of COVID. Me coming to Korea and COVID gave me the strength to say, I'm done. I'm not doing this no more. So what happened was, as I talked about in my very first episode about coming to Korea, I was depressed. I was really sad. And so when I got the opportunity to Korea, I was so excited. And I also mentioned that I started meeting new people. And that was the thing. The same family member was telling me that we were best friends. They had me isolated, would get into my head about like the people that I was cool with, and were telling me how this person wasn't good for me and this person was bad for me and was really, not looking out for my best interest, when all along it was really them. But they really, twisted my mind to believe that the people around me weren't looking out for me. So I was really isolated when it came to my friend group. Like, literally, this person was my only friend. But right when I was getting ready to come to Korea, I started making new friends. And that's when I started realizing, like, the friendship that I had with this family member was really toxic and really abusive, verbally, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, in all of those ways. And when I'm seeing my friendship with these new people and they don't ask for anything, and they're uplifting and they're encouraging and they're sewing into me and they're pouring into me, the way there was such a large difference, I realized, like, this is what friendship is supposed to look like. And it's a complete difference from what I had with them. So, I get accepted into Korea. Everybody's excited for me except for them. The first things that come out of their mouth is, oh, I'm excited for you, but I guess that means I'm going to lose my best friend. And that starts a whole spiral of an issue with us. Because I'm like, what's that supposed to mean? Why does me moving have to be a negative thing? Yes, there's going to be some shifts. Yes, there's going to be some adjustments. But why does it automatically equate to being a negative thing? So it became a constant issue between us about me moving to Korea. So that became like an argument. And then it became an issue when I got here. People were really curious about my life here in Korea. So I started, documenting it on Instagram, taking videos and doing like little mini vlogs about it. And that became an issue as well. Oh, why are you telling everybody about your business? Real G's move in silence, that type of stuff. I'm like, I'm literally just telling people about me being in Korea. I don't understand what the big deal is. And so that became a fight as well. The littlest things that I did, I wasn't doing right. I was doing everything wrong. So fast forward, I think I mentioned it in the first episode, maybe I didn't. The very first month in Korea, when you come, they require you to bring cash because you have to get your alien registration, because you have to bring cash because you have to set up your alien registration and get all your paperwork before you can get a bank account. So they tell you to bring money to cover you for at least a month because you don't have a bank account. So I set up a bank account finally, but I didn't have what's called a remittance account. And what that is you connect that to your US bank account. So if you have bills back home, you can literally transfer money from your Korean bank account to your US account. This person reaches out to me saying like, I need money for this, that, and the third, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, in a nutshell, I was like, oh, so sorry for you. I can't do nothing about that. And they're like, oh, what do you mean you can't do nothing about that? And I was like, I just got a bank account here in Korea. I don't have any money in my US account, so I can't do nothing for you. I don't have a remittance, a bank account. I can't do nothing for you. So they're like, oh, well, can you take money from your Korean bank account and transfer it to me? And I was like, no, there's no way to do that. So then they proceed to go find a Western Union here in Korea. And they're like, oh, well, there's a Western Union that's like 2 hours for you. I'm like, it's the middle of a Panasonic. I'm not going to find a Western Union. First of all, I barely speak Korean. I don't know if they speak English. I'm not going into a Western Union to do anything in the middle of COVID. You got me messed up. And so it starts an argument. What do you mean you're not going to go out there? I was like, I'm not going out there. So sorry for you. So it was literally the first time that I could say no and my hands were literally tied. Before I had said no, it caused an argument and I would buckle essentially. But this was literally the first time I said no, and it didn't matter how the argument went. I literally could not do anything. And so I basically stated like, I'm in a new country. I don't know the language. We're in the middle of a panini. I don't have options. So take it or leave it. So with that, I was called names. I was called out my name and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get off the phone because what you're not going to do is call me out my name. I don't take too kindly to that at all. So I hang up. So then maybe a week or so later goes by, I get the call and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, this, that, and the third. Like, oh, can you try and do, asking me again for the money. I was like, I can't do nothing for you. So they basically dropped that. Cool. We then get into another situation where they felt like I wasn't calling them enough. And with the parallelogram going on, I found that I enjoyed time by myself. I would go to the school, be around the teachers, be around the students, and normally I would either take the bus to and from school or I would walk. And I would find that I enjoyed the walk. I would be with my thoughts. I would come home. I'd cook. I'd watch anime or Netflix. I just enjoyed my alone time. And they didn't like that I wasn't calling them at every single moment. Again, the manipulation, the control. And they were like, oh, why didn't you call me? And I was like, I was in the middle of something. Oh, well, you could have called me instead of watching anime like you normally do. Why are you controlling my time? Why are you telling me what to do? So again, that proceeded to be an argument. It started crossing the lines of being beyond friends and family into something else. And that's when I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but this is going to have to come to a stop. So essentially, long story short, it was destroying my peace and it was destroying my mental health. And I started really diving into my prayer life and meditating and really just getting closer to God. And I started praying that God would, honestly, truly, I prayed that God would remove him from my life peacefully. And the reason why I say remove him from my life peacefully is that there were times where I told this person that, or him, might as well just say him, that, I think this friendship is getting a bit muddied. I feel like me adding the finances, things are just getting out of hand. I feel like there's lines being crossed. I think we should go our separate ways. And he had essentially, trigger warning, tried to take his own life. at account of it, like being hella dramatic, like, oh, there's no reason for me to live, I'ma just, and I'm like, you have a whole kid, you have family, like what are you talking about? And would call me kind of like, again, the Tinder swindler, like, oh, there's enemies after me, here's the blood, here's the this, would scare me with this, like, oh, I'ma just, get rid of myself and this, that, and the third. And I'm like, that's not something you tell somebody that you so-called care about. So initially I was just like, fine, let's just be cool, whatever. But this go around, I was like, God, I really need you to remove this person from my life. Remove him in a peaceful manner and give me the strength to do it. Because, again, this has been going on for 10 years. I'm not the same person that I was before. I'm grown up. I'm older mentally, emotionally, physically. I'm not the same age anymore. And so I'm like, this has got to stop. This person has robbed me of my youth. They've robbed me of 10 years. They've robbed me of so much. They've taken so much from me. So much that I can't get back. I can't keep doing this. So I was just like, you have to take them away from me. Like, you've got to literally go in there and remove them from my life. And I'll never forget the day I was in the bathroom. And again, there's a reason why I go by the name Shameless Listomaniac. I'm in the bathroom. I'm having myself a whole dance party. And as clear as day, I hear a voice saying, 1, this is what black girl joy feels like. 2, it's about to be taken away. And within seconds, my phone rings and he is calling me. And I debated whether I was going to pick it up or not. But I was like, no, this is the day I'm going to cut this thing off. Literally, like, cut the head off. I'm done. So I pick up the phone, and I think we had some other arguments, because literally by the time I'm in Korea, every other day that I even pick up the phone with this person, it's an argument about something stupid. Something that I said, something I didn't say, something I did, something I didn't do. Like, literally, it's mentally exhausting that I'm just not picking up my phone that often. And so pick up the phone and they want to argue about something. And I was like, look, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I'm done with this. I'm over this. Set me free. Like, literally, I remember saying, like, set me free. And they were like, what do you mean set you free? I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be friends. I don't want to be family. I don't want to be nothing. Like, I don't want to exist to you anymore. Please just, you go your way, I go my way, and we just cut it at that. Like this just be the end all be all. Like, I don't want to do this no more. And when I said that, the whole tune started to change, begging me like, oh, I can't do this without you. I need you. Who's going to help me with this? And who's going to help me financially take care of that? And how am I supposed to do this? And you're the only one that understands me. And I was like, look, honestly, I was like, you grown. You can figure this out. I was like, honestly, I've been getting in your way for far too long. Because I heard a pastor say sometimes we have a tendency to want to keep people from hitting rock bottom, but sometimes people have to hit rock bottom in order for them to find the light. You have a tendency to keep people from finding their own salvation by trying to keep them from hitting rock bottom. And I realized I was doing that for him, that he might need to hit rock bottom in order to find his salvation, and I was keeping him from finding his salvation. So I was just like, I'm in your way. And quite frankly, you're in mine. I can't do this. I was like, I need to get to whatever God has for me. And I can't do that when we're chained together. So I was like, I release you. I'm asking you to release me. Like, basically, you can either do it the easy way or the hard way. So how do you want to do this? So again, he tried to plead his case, go on and on and on. And I was like, that's all cool. That's all well and good. But I said what I said. I'm over it. I'm done. And of course, he went on the dramatic route, started crying, started doing all of this, started screaming, started yelling, talking about he's not going to live anymore. And I was like, sir, please stop being dramatic. You have a whole family that you need to take care of. You can't be talking about you're not trying to live no more because of me. I'm insignificant. I'm nobody. Please, cut the games. Please cut the games. And I just remember finally getting off the phone and I wept. I wept like a baby because it was like 10 years of weights and shackles had finally broken off of me. If I could tell y'all the relief I felt when I finally told this man, I want nothing to do with you. I want nothing. I want to be released from you. There's no words, literally no words. Now, of course, because that was such a norm for me, I ended up going into a deep state of depression. I remember for a month, I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to eat. All I did was sleep. I didn't open my blinds. Like, it was a horrible month for me. And that's when I decided I was going to start therapy because I didn't want to bleed onto anybody, like my friends, my family, my future partner, because of something somebody else did to me. I don't want to blame my future husband for something he says or have a knee-jerk reaction to him because of something this person did to me. I don't want that to happen. And that started happening a little bit. You know, I would have like random flashbacks during the first year of like therapy. I would have random flashbacks, or I would hear something because like this person would say horrible things to me, like, oh, I'm not that interesting, or I don't have good conversations, or I'm not that funny, or, you know, that I'm very intimidating, or the fact that no man is going to actually be interested in me as a person, but only be interested in me sexually because I don't have much to offer. You know, he's like, I'm a guy, so I'm just going to keep it 100 to you. So, like, said a lot of things to really break me down. And that's why I said, like, maybe I was stupid and letting it go on for as long as I did. But when you have somebody break you down to your lowest point, it takes a lot to bring yourself back up. And I don't think I would have been able to bring myself back up if I didn't have, you know, my sister or my best friend and my really good friends be able to encourage me and tell me, like, girl, that's not normal. We don't shame you. We support you. We cover you in love. We cover you in grace, because that could easily happen to anybody. Because I literally walked around in shame for a long time. I walked around embarrassed because I'm like, I'm too smart for this. How could somebody like me get caught up in something like this? Like, I'm too smart for this. But I realized that it wasn't that I was too smart for it. It's just that I'm the type of person that I love hard and I care for people, and I would, like I said, I would give the clothes off my back to anybody. It's just that somebody came in and saw that and saw my kindness and wanted to take advantage of it. They saw my life. They saw that I had what they saw was a good life and hated me for it. They hated me for having what they saw was a good life and decided that they were going to leech off of me and tear me down in the process, because for them, they felt like life never didn't deal them good cards. And somebody like me, I was dealt good cards. And so they're like, you know what? I'm going to make her my victim. I'm going to swindle her out of every single thing. And that's what happened to me. But like I said, I have learned that in this, it hasn't made me bitter. It's made me better. It's made me stronger. It's made me wiser. I'm able to be more empathetic for women that I see in the Tinder Swindler. Like I said, did I see a couple red flags in a lot of those situations? Absolutely. But I think it's just because of the fact that I've been in a situation similar to that, and I would never just jump on a plane with someone going to Bulgaria. But all in all, I'm never one as a woman to victim blame or victim shame somebody, because you never know who could be a victim. I'm sure anybody could look at me and be like, oh, Kathleen, she's really headstrong and she knows what she wants. She knows what she'll put up with and what she won't put up with. And you're absolutely right. But I'm, as my friends would say, I'm a thug crybaby, you know? I'm a thug, but I'm a softie at the same time. And I dealt with someone that saw that in me and really plunged a knife deep. But guess what? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And that's the gospel truth. It made me stronger. And I'm not gonna sit here and let that be a story that's like, oh, woe is me. And like I said, I don't hold any bitterness or anger towards that person. I wish them nothing but peace and happiness, because I realize that if you seek out revenge for those type of people, then that means they focus on you too much. And I don't want them thinking about me. I want them to have good things. I want them to have peace and joy so that they live good long life. Because for me, I know regardless, I'm gonna have a good life. I'm gonna have a blessed life. And I already believe and wholeheartedly pray and know that the money that I put into this person, God will bring back to me, not 30, not 60, but 100-fold. I stand by that, because I didn't give out of ill will. I didn't give out of malice. I didn't give with ill intent. I gave out of the goodness and the purity of my heart. And so I know for a fact that in my mind, like I said, oh, I'm sowing seed. That's still a fact. I sowed seed. Now, his ground may not have been the best soil, may not have been the good ground, the best ground. But because I serve a great God and a good God, I know for a fact that the money I put in, he gonna bring it back to me 100-fold. And that's a fact. But yeah, like I said, watching the Tinder Swindler just really triggered me. Initially, I was watching it because, which I still will do, I wanted to do a compare and contrast to the Tinder Swindler and the Anna Delvey story, which I do want to do. I'm going to do one episode just analyzing the Anna Delvey story, and I want to do a compare and contrast, because I think it's very interesting how people have different reactions to the two stories. That was my initial rant about the story, but I really wanted to just talk about the Tinder Swindler on its own after watching it, and I'm gonna watch the Anna Delvey story and probably do its own soapbox rant, and then probably either come back and do the compare and contrast, or I'll probably just do one and combine it. We'll see how I feel once I kind of dive into the Anna Delvey story. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. But yeah, that is basically the story of how your girl got swindled. But like I said, please don't feel bad for me. Please don't feel sorry for me. I am not somebody that, I wear my scars proudly. I'm not ashamed. I'm not embarrassed. I'm not going to lie. This wasn't a story I never planned to tell anybody publicly. My close friends know about this story, but watching the Tinder Swindler, I don't know. I just really felt compelled to share it. Maybe it'll bless somebody. Maybe there's someone out there who has a similar story to me. Maybe not. I don't know. Like I said, maybe y'all will think I'm stupid for letting this happen. And that's okay. Look, I've never been one to let what people think of me knock me from my hustle or keep me from the bag. Like, I can't do nothing with people's opinions of me. I can't take it to the bank. I can't eat it. I can't wear it. So people's opinions of me means absolutely nothing to me. So there's that. So if you think I'm stupid, that's cool. But I shared it because maybe someone will resonate with my story and understand that you too can come out of the storm. That if you're in the middle of a situation like that right now, you can come out of it. You can find your voice and say no. That you can put a stop to it. That maybe you've been through something like this and you've been too scared, or you feel like there's no way out. There is a way out. I didn't think there was a way out. I didn't think that I would ever be on the other side of it, and yet here I am. And I'm so glad I found my way out of it. So you too can find a way out. It's never too late. Like I said, I was 10 years out. I was 10 years into it, 10 years deep. Literally like a marriage. It's like me coming out of a marriage, literally. So I just wanted to share my story, and maybe somebody will be blessed. Maybe somebody will resonate. I don't know. Or maybe you could just be like, dang girl, like you went through a lot. And that's cool too. That's cool too. But again, wrapping up today's episode, remember, follow me on all social media platforms as Shameless Listo. That's ShamelessLiszto. Also, don't forget to check out my blog website if you can, where I do all of my album reviews. And if you really like today's episode, make sure to leave a review and rate the episode. You know, not just today's episode, but all of my past episodes and the podcast in general. If you really like my content, it would mean a lot to me if you would rate and leave reviews wherever you listen to the podcast, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, or Google. It means an absolute lot to me. I appreciate it. So thank you for listening to today's episode, and your girl is off her soapbox. See ya.